There we go. I figured it out this time. All right, Tim. Welcome to the Tie Five. I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
No problem. So let's just dive in.
Cool.
Uh, what's your process for using creative to tell stories about, what are sometimes complicated ideas or concepts in kind of a simple yet exciting way?
Video, period. No, I've been a video producer for about 20 years now. Started humble beginnings, camera guy out in the on the great outdoors, like shooting action sports and skiing, snowboarding, and things like that. But moving back here, and having an agency career for 12 years, I experienced a lot, right? It's like, what's
Mhm.
the old adage, like 1 year at an agency is like 3 years
Yeah,
internal
it's not dog
experience
years, but
wise.
it's pretty close.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, just seeing the value and the power of video. It's not only qualitatively but quantitatively like the best medium to show and tell complicated ideas. HubSpot just this last week released their state of marketing report, and there's data up and down about video's performance, but like the key takeaways that it's the number one medium for marketers for like the fourth year in a row. So yeah, and I mean, it's just so powerful to that, coalesce message, aesthetic, tone of voice, experience with the visuals, for especially for a brand's point of view, right? Synergize all that and compound it with voiceover or text or
Right.
music, right? And just an experience at the end of the day.
I mean, is it as simple as it's easier to show something than tell it?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you know, pictures worth 1,000 words, and
All those cliches that
multiply
we
that
wrap
against
around
video.
it.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about frames. Yeah, exactly.
But I guess, I think when you look at I use the word creative when asking you that question specifically because you don't just do video. You have more talents than just, shooting stuff. It's when you
Yeah.
combine all those different elements, right, of creative.
Well, yeah. I mean, it comes from a place of why, which is always really
Yeah.
important, and then a perspective to what makes this thing that we're about to embark on creating unique and impactful, and you know hits a goal at the end of the day. And it involves with a lot of creativity
Mhm.
from that ideation standpoint, and of course, like writing is really the root of all of it. Is like, what is this story we're intending to tell? Like, how do we make this story impactful? And then the execution is where people mostly think of video, right? It's like, oh, like you're moving keyframes in a motion design project, or you're pointing a camera and pressing a record button. It's like there's so much intention prior to
Mhm.
that moment, right? Like that's more like all the dominoes have been stacked up and now you're flicking them down. And then of course editing is like kind of where the magic all comes together,
Mhm.
to make it tangible in a way, right?
Right.
But yeah, at the end of the day, it's as a creator, it's uh, really embracing and loving the process and taking a lot of pride in that, less so than like putting it up on YouTube, because
Right.
it's like it's in the eye of the beholder a lot of the times. So from a creator's standpoint, it's the process, as you were just describing, is like the best part of creativity.
Well, you said the word a little bit ago, impactful. And it's one I use a lot. How do you define impactful for what you do?
Good. Yeah, good question. I mean, from a business point of view, ROI and video have always been sort of mushy.
Mm.
You can certainly do it, if you have your right sort of CRM and your funnel and your process is really tight and you can see the sequence of things.
Mhm.
So impactful, you need to look beyond like views. You need to look beyond
Your normal
likes and
KPIs
things.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
right. Those are certainly important.
of course.
But video is also like incredible as a one-on-one medium, right? So like in a meeting or in a pitch situation, like or an event, right? It's like you have hundreds, if not thousands, of attentive eyeballs and ears. It's like that's really that moment of impact, is when you see the and feel the sort of tone, it resonating
Yeah.
throughout
It's
the room,
feel,
right?
it's wow,
Feel,
it's emotion,
bingo,
you know?
bingo,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, and then there's, in my world, there are those things like awards that are always nice, right? When you get the sort of recognition for
Sure.
the creativity and the work. But I find that a lot of our clients, yeah, like getting millions of views, of course, is amazing, but like understanding that it's impacted bottom line or top line goals, right? Like
Right.
that's the game.
And there's that simple thing of people getting excited. It's, people, oh, that was great. I'm really, you almost hear a change in their voice, which is kind of
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, you just see that it's hitting, and or it's even like a lot of the work we're trying to either embody or reflect the audience
Hmm.
on behalf of the brand, right? So it's like it's hard to see that over the internet, like, or mobile device, right? But
Yeah.
when you get that feedback, like in my career, there was so many times, like a new recruit would be like, oh, the videos on the website were like a big driver for me to want to apply, right? Like
Hmm.
that's rewarding, right? Just
Yeah.
those individual sort of qualitative moments,
With the
should not
quantitative.
go
It's,
unnoticed.
yeah. When you combine the quantitative and the
Correct.
qualitative, that's when you're doing good stuff.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Um, so how do you think storytelling is going to change over the next 5 years? Because I want you to predict it, because you're going to be the person whose prediction is going to come true. I promise.
Yeah, I mean, it's it is wild out there right now. Combination of, artificial intelligence and the writer strike and the actor strike, and the, between TikTok and all the social channels, it's just like it's incredible. And of course, everybody has most everybody is fortunate enough to have the tools
Hmm.
to do it, right? So I think the challenge is going to be, back to that word intention and impact, right? It's like people can create, they can just create stuff ad nauseum, but like, is it moving? Is it impactful? Is it worth people's time, right? So I think that's the thing I'm always couching is, what's the worth of creating whatever it is we're going to create, right? Like if it's your own self fulfillment, that's one thing, but like when you're basically imposing your content on other people's time, it should be worthwhile, right? So you got to think through, is this valuable, is this educational, like is there something inherently important to the person you're sharing this with, right? But as far as just like broad strokes of the industry, I think that combination of the writers and actor strikes and the ability of people to create things on their own, and have their own persona as a creator, and we've seen it take off in the influencer space, right? That I think we're going to see a lot of individuals, like actors or whoever, writers, like create their own content because they can just do it without the politics in between them and their audience.
The
So
barriers to
there's going to be
entry.
some
Yeah.
really, yeah, that's exactly right. So I think there's going to be a lot of interesting new approaches, which will, appropriately cause a good evolution. But I think it's just that combating the robot, the AI too. So,
Yeah.
and use it more as a collaborator than a full doer, if that makes sense.
I mean, one thing we've talked about over the years is, the importance of there's artistry, but also a level of authenticity,
Yes.
and I think you mentioned the word content fatigue a little bit ago. Um,
Hmm.
are those, sometimes the secrets for breaking through that deluge of content that we're all getting through our phones, our TVs, or everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. And at a constant, tremendous pace too. Um, yeah. There's this writer, speaker, podcaster, Jay Kunzo, that I really enjoy his perspective, and his sort of mantra right now is, don't be the best, be their favorite. So just sort of like that
Mm.
body embodiment of like authenticity, and not just being like so driven by, you know things like algorithms and SEO and things that are obviously important. But when you're like coming from a creative place, you should be as authentic as possible, because then you'll attract the right audiences, versus just blanketing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Real always works.
Yeah, well said.
All right. So we're both huge fans of music. Um, do you think music enhances video or undermines it as an art form? What do you think?
Is music enhance video? I mean, yeah,
Of course. I know.
definitely. Yeah, no, I mean, it's it's funny though, because music, it's so subjective. And I actually just experienced this last week with a client. Is like, we're at the finish line of this project, and they're like, we love it, but we want to change the music, you know? And you're
Yeah.
like, okay, like it's there. We are just the vehicle to produce their vision, right? So we're always willing and able to do it. But music is always like the most touchy part, right? Because it's like the owner of this thing wants it to resonate with them, but it's also like, well, it should resonate with your audience first and foremost, like make them happy, and
Mhm.
basically by default be happy. So yeah, that's always a tough one. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously always does that. And that's why that you know, they're both like inherently artistic, right? You're
Right.
creating music, you're creating visuals. There's audio visual is a term
Yeah.
for a reason. It goes together.
I know. I know. Um, when when somewhat off script, but like when you're using music, I mean, what is it, a chicken or the egg thing? Which one does
which
sometimes the
leads
vid?
which leads what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny because in my early career, uh when it was a lot of like action sports, you were just looking for a specific energy, right? So
Right.
you picked the music usually before you started stringing out any of the visuals, because you're like, I know that this is what, like, the energy I'm going for. So you
Yeah.
select the music track and you edit to that. With branded content, especially like interview driven things, a lot of it, like, you know the tone you're going for through the phases of pre-production.
Right.
Like, you know that this is like the mood and vibe, any other sort of synonyms that you're striving for, but you don't necessarily know until, especially if it's an interview driven piece, the sort of like cadence of the
Yeah.
like performance of the people that you're interviewing, right? So I actually reverse that. So I like lay out the whole messaging cut, right? Like,
Mhm.
here's all of the audio for this piece to the target length we're striving for, the music, like, I'm sorry, like the messaging is like, has that
Yep.
cadence. And then you find a music track that sort of matches that cadence.
Mm.
If you're like, all right, like we have this hook, this like 10 or 15-second hook in the beginning, that might actually be its own individual music track. And then typically, there's like some sort of aha moment in the storytelling that probably behooves like another music track, right?
Yeah.
Or at least a music track that has like that ebb and flow to it. So I always love that moment of like, you know the tone you're striving for, the messaging is tight, the sort of beats towards like,
Mhm.
whether you're having music changes or like the cadence of the track. And then it's like the mining of that track is like, it can be exhausting, but it's always really cool when you kind of have like one window playing the music and the other window playing your video, and you're like, okay, like I think this is gonna line up nicely, and then you finesse, of course. But
But that, so you have like the interview content, then you had, kind of the action sports stuff where you were there shooting it, but then you have, we've worked on some assignments where it's like a hype video. You're trying to get people
yeah.
excited somewhere. And um, that's a place where like, I think, music can almost drive
Oh,
the visual.
definitely. That's exactly right. Yeah. So that would be that sort of early days part of my career, where it's like, let the music really drive the visual. And yeah, it's funny. It's not particularly relevant, but twice this week I've had different clients be like, "Could we use shipping up to Boston?" I'm like, that's really funny. Like, I don't know what the coincidence is there, but yeah, I mean, that's just it, right? People have that association with either a genre holistically, or like
Yeah.
an individual music track. They're like, we want the spirit of this track, right? And so like,
Mhm.
it can be the foundation of how you build your piece.
And it's funny, being local here, we're both in the Boston area. Shipping up to Boston has such a connection with, the
Exactly.
Boston Red Sox, with The Departed. It's become this song that's almost embodied other things, is how it's
Anthemic.
been
Yeah,
used.
exactly. Yep.
But enough about the Dropkick Murphys. So 3 years after the world shut down because of COVID, what are some of the impacts you've seen on the work you've done? Has it become more important? Do people understand it a little bit more?
Yeah,
What have
it's
you seen?
certainly like the adoption of these tools to produce the sort of rich media content, right? So to me, it's podcasts, it's video, and it's sort of that hybrid webinars in my mind. So yeah, I mean, everyone was just forced to get on Zoom and get familiar with the little green dot on their
Hmm.
computer and sort of performing in that way. So that certainly in like the B2B space, like people have just more aptitude to jump on camera and speak their mind and be authentic. And then that makes for incredibly rich, like owned content. And that's the point, right? Is to like help
Yeah.
differentiate from a competition and have a point of view. So yeah, like podcasts, that's part and parcel explosion of those of that medium and stories. I think again harks back to the like how do you do it not only authentically but in a way that's valuable to
Yeah.
the people you're talking to. And
The
then
key is that word there. That word appears authentic, you
yep,
know?
exactly. And video same way, just it's quite a bit more complicated, but
Yeah.
people are just more familiar with it and just having these powerful tools in the palm of your hand. It's like that user generated content feel and the TikTok world, like everything, like people expect that more than
Mhm.
just like embrace it, right? And then webinars, same thing, just kind of the longer form, the longer format of that combination really of the point of view and providing value. Um, and all of it's just like tremendous to cut and slice and have that sort of steady drip or drumbeat cadence of your own message on your own channels.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Last but not least, what book or author or thinker has been, important or a touchstone for you in your career?
I always go back to Austin Kleon's books. He has written three, and it's kind of this like trilogy of sorts that are primarily written for creators, but I think anybody can like embrace what he's saying. And the trilogy is steal like an artist, show your work, and keep going. So it's kind of like the like kind of that sort of trilogy trifecta in the creative process. And it's really, just like the first one being, sharing tips and strategies about like nurturing that creativity and
Mhm.
like where to find inspiration and to like embrace that inspiration and draw from various sources to like sort of find your own artistic voice. And that's sort of the nature of the world, right?
Mhm.
And then show your work is just like more about process than like end
Mhm.
result, so people can understand like the why and like the purpose of things and sort of like your own creative evolution. And personally for my own business now, I'm trying to adopt
Right.
that mindset and like sharing the journey of like producing our logo and identity and like getting to work and all that. So it's been really cool to sort of see that response in
Mhm.
the wild. And then the keep going is that the motivation for like the challenging times and overcoming obstacles and things like that. So they're all short reads, and there's a lot of illustrations and stuff in those, so I highly recommend them for anyone who's just like needs that push creatively.
Words and pictures, and I think we just need to figure out. You and I need to collaborate on a soundtrack for it.
There we go. That would work.
There you go. All right, man. I appreciate you joining us. I enjoyed it. It's
Yep.
fun,
Me too. Always
and
a pleasure.
thank you very much.
Thank you.